Nigeria records 38 new cases of COVID-19 as Presidential Task Force apologizes to Nigerians.
TTF recognizes regrettably the unintentional violation of the principles and protocols that form the core of our messaging to Nigerians at the funeral of the late Chief of Staff.
Federal government constitutes Inter-Ministerial Committee on Food Production and Supply during the lockdown.
It is a various checkpoints to facilitate the passage of vehicles conveying foodstuff, perishable farm products and livestock without compromising national security or health measures.
25 inmates regained freedom from Kwale Custodial Center in Delta State.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss curbing community transmission of the coronavirus.
Since the confirmation of the index case of COVID-19 in Nigeria on the 27th of February 2020, the federal government took various measures to curb community transmission in the country.
Now, these measures include the closure of schools, banning of large gatherings of people, religious congregation, and social distancing.
And to ensure effectiveness of the measures, the federal government announced the total lockdown of the major states that have the highest number of infection as at that time, which include Lagos and Ogun State, as well as the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, for the initial 2 weeks, which was also extended by another 2 weeks as part of efforts to contain community transmission.
Now, while some states also followed suit or had on their own prescribed lockdown of their territories to prevent the spread of the virus, while others did not deem fit to do so.
And you know, that's perhaps what led to the spread of the coronavirus to some states like Kano, Katsina, and others whose index cases were brought into their various states by travelers.
Well, Nigeria continues to record more cases of the virus, with 2 states having their index cases now. And those states, of course, include Sokoto and Abia, but there's also now Gombe State.
You know, Kingsley, this ugly development prompted more states to step up measures towards containing the spread of the virus, including total lockdown and restriction of interstate travels.
Now, aside from these measures, some states have also opened isolation centers where they will quarantine travelers who are arriving in their states in order to prevent the transmission of the virus.
For instance, 500 travelers have been placed under 14 days isolation in Yobe and Borno State to ascertain their health status to prevent interstate and community transmission.
Well, as the Federal Capital Territory and Lagos and perhaps 1 or 2 other states have begun active search and testing for COVID-19, one question that arises is what should now be done in addition to those measures to further prevent the spread of the virus? And how can the populace be further enlightened to make them realize, as it were, the gravity of community spread of the virus? More particularly, just why is it that in several locations across the country, people are not observing this social distancing rule? We find them still traveling interstate. And can proper enforcement of the lockdown, either in the federally mandated states or in other states, help in taming community transmission of COVID-19? And should there be door-to-door testing if that becomes necessary in terms of also part of the measures to contain the spread? My name is Kingsley Osadola, and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria for today.
And I am Jumwa Yusuf. Good morning to you. We're reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority from the nation's capital, Abuja. And we shall also bring you some of our complimentary segments of the program. But first, let's join Usman Aliu for the morning news. Good morning, Usman.
Good morning, Jumma and Kingsley. Here is the morning news. As of 20th of April 2020, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control (NCDC) announced 38 new cases of COVID-19 across the country, bringing the number of confirmed cases to 665. Of the 38 new cases, 23 are in Kano, 5 in Gombe, 3 in Kaduna, 2 in Bauchi, 2 in Abia, 1 in the FCT, 1 in Sokoto, and 1 in Ekiti. 188 patients have been discharged so far, and the death toll has risen to 22. Meanwhile, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has formally apologized to Nigerians for what it called the unintentional violation of social distancing protocols at the funeral of the late Chief of Staff to the President, Abuja. Chairman of the task force and secretary to the government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, tendered the apology at yesterday's briefing in Abuja. He urged Nigerians not to relent until the war against COVID-19 is won.
PTF recognizes regrettably the unintentional violation of the principles and protocols that form the core of our messaging to Nigerians at the funeral of the late Chief of Staff. Lessons have been learned and appropriate measures have been taken to close all gaps.
The federal government has constituted an interministerial committee with a mandate of ensuring food production and supply during the lockdown period. The constitution of the committee was based on the security threat and challenges associated with movement of food items and farmers' access to their farms in lockdown states. The committee consists of Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Minister of Defense, that of Police and Commandant General, Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps.
Directives to law enforcement agents at the various checkpoints to facilitate the passage of vehicles conveying foodstuff, perishable farm products and livestock without compromising national security or health measures. Agreed that law enforcement agents to liaise with local governments and state with officials in determining modalities for facilitating the movement of foodstuff and from markets.
And Kano State Government has concluded arrangements for the distribution of foodstuff among vulnerable in the society to cushion the effect of the week-long stay-at-home order. Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje said this when he led a meeting of stakeholders to identify additional ways of containing community spread of COVID-19 in the state.
So our intention is to provide palliatives on the basis of households and on the basis of electoral units. We have over 125,000 electoral units in Kano State.
As part of efforts to ensure sustained implementation of its free and compulsory basic primary and secondary education, Kano State Government has moved to decongest Almajiri schools by evacuating Almajiri pupils to their respective states for onward reunion with their families. A statement by the Commissioner for Information, Mohammed Garba, says the measure becomes imperative as closure of all primary and secondary schools 3 weeks ago has caused the Almajiri seminaries to remain congested with pupils having no shelter, no place to go. The statement also says the measure, which has been adopted after due consultation, is in line with its proactive measures to control the spread of deadly virus in the state. Already arrangements have been concluded for the handing over of 432 Almajiris to Katsina State this Tuesday, 21st April 2020. 8 other states that have hundreds will also follow, including the Niger Republic, which has 1 Almajiri. And the Sultan of Sokoto and Chairman Jamaatul Nasr al-Islam, Muhammad Saad Abubakar III, has urged Muslim faithful to use the coming month of Ramadan to pray for the end of the coronavirus pandemic. A statement from the JNI admonished faithful to stay at home and pray with their families to avoid contracting the COVID-19. The statement notes that Islam's position on plagues and pandemics is clear, and the fact that most of the worships of night prayers are not compulsory and it is convenient to pray at home. On Tafsir, the JNI urged Muslims to explore the various online platforms to conduct it and pray that Allah, who knows all, will accept all deeds as well as end the coronavirus pandemic soon. It commends federal government over efforts to end the pandemic and urged Muslims to cooperate with authorities. And following the order from the presidency that the custodial centers should be decongested across the country to prevent the spread of coronavirus, the Chief Judge of Delta State, Justice Marshal Umukoro, has released 25 inmates from the Kwale Custodial Center.
As you go home now, stay in your house until this pandemic is over and government lifts the lockdown. You understand me? Yes, sir. Make sure you obey the law.
And that's the news highlight this morning. The Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Jume after this break. Stay with us.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
You've seen me promote Lifebuoy soap, but today I urge you to use whichever soap that is nearest to you, because washing hands with soap helps to fight the coronavirus. This is a public service announcement from Lifebuoy.
Very important message for you guys. Stay at home. No. Stay safe. Noruma. This is the right thing to do at this time. And don't forget, remember to wash your hands. Sachasia kage samaya sama, sachasia isia kage ofuma. Together, we'll beat this thing. Are you ready now? Are you ready, man?
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
Cadbury Hot Chocolate 3-in-1, a delicious combination of rich cocoa and wholesome goodness of milk. Just add hot water to get an instant chocolatey treat. Cadbury Hot Chocolate 3-in-1. Just add hot water. Available in stores at 18 naira. The main way coronavirus spread is when infected people sneeze and cough. Small droplets of fluid expelled by cough or sneezes are laced with viruses looking for new respiratory tracts to infect. When a sick person sneezes around someone who is healthy, the virus can land in the nose, mouth, or even the eyes, causing an infection. Symptoms can include fever, cough, shortness of breath. Symptoms may appear within 2 to 14 days. Seek medical advice if you develop symptoms and have been in close contact with a person known to have COVID-19, or if you live or have recently been in an area with ongoing spread of COVID-19. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Welcome back. Oil prices continue to slump in the global oil market. These and more on business news with Abdul Karim Zurmi.
There appears to be no respite in sight for oil producers as the volatility and continuous price slump in the global oil market continues. The crude oil price slide is said to be the steepest in more than 2 decades, exacerbated by very low global demands and concerns that global storage facilities are rapidly running out. Meanwhile, against the backdrop of COVID-19, Nigeria finds itself in a situation where plans need to be put in place to ensure economic growth post-COVID-19. Experts, while outlining solutions which could help sustain the growth momentum in the SME sector, noted that improved access to loan facilities for this sector will help ensure a sustained lifeline for Nigeria's economy.
The palliatives for small-scale businesses, for businesses in the informal sector, needs to be strengthened to ensure that they stay on the path of keeping people in employment, and sustaining jobs, and also creating jobs post-COVID-19.
Informal sector is 5% of our GDP. They are 55%, 50% of the GDP growth itself. They are part of the 92% of the employment. You can't ignore that. That is our route for recovery. Because if you're talking about non-oil investment, that is the route for bringing back the economy with speed and rebound.
Now let's head to the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange and see how the market fared on Monday, 20th of April, 2020. With business news, Abdul Karim Zurmi.
Many thanks, Abdul Karim Zurmi, for the business package. Next is newspaper review.
And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Tiobi, is in the studio. Good morning, Bayo.
Thank you, Juma. Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning, Kinsley.
Hi, Bayo.
Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay, so let's begin by taking a look at the Punch newspaper, one of the papers that we have for review this morning. Now, the lead story for Punch comes with a kicker. Kiari, that's the late chief of staff to the president. COVID-19 corpses, not infectious, says task force. And 2 riders, WHO employee infected in Kano Mosque. And that story is attributed to the deputy governor of Bauchi State. 44% of your cases traceable to UCH, that's University College Hospital in Ibadan. And Kano records 23 new cases, while the total national figure is now 665. Now, above the nameplate of the Punch newspaper, you have the following headlines. Power generation falls to 3,757 megawatts. 6 plants idle, page 21. No Ramadan lectures and mosque gatherings, Sultan warns, that's page 8. We'll pay Nigeria Airways workers soon, federal government promises again. And judges may lose 2-month annual vacation, that's according to the Attorney General of the Federation. Malami, with details on page 20. The photograph on the front page of the Punch has the caption, "Some suspected foreigners at a market in Kaduna who were said to be on their way to Niger Republic," and that was yesterday. And police arrest 61 Lagos returnees for quarantine in Zamfara, page 15. Borno traces 99 index case contacts to decongest IDPs. That's on page 8. Kano to repatriate over 178,000 Almajiris to other states. That's page 9. Brent crude crashes to $25. U.S. oil falls below $1. 5 killed and houses razed in southern Kaduna. That's according to Sokapu. Details on page 20. Benue raises committee to monitor boundary with Cameroon. Details on page 15.
Okay, and from the Daily Sun newspaper, just beside the airpiece of the Daily Sun, COVID-19, fear grips health workers. You find that story on page 3 and 28, with riders. States now to isolate Lagos, Kano, FCT, Ogun returnees. And then the bold headlines there: "We made mistakes with Carrie's burial. SGF admits," with a rider, attends COVID-19 update briefing with ministers, others who are also at late chief of staff's funeral. You find that story on page 27. And then the picture story there, some Nigerians in Kaduna being evacuated in truck to their country yesterday. Violators of the stay-at-home order are arrested in the Federal Capital Territory, serving their sentence by the mobile court. You can see them sweeping the street of Abuja. FG extends airport closure by 2 weeks. With a rider, UK evacuates more nationals. You find that on page 2 and 3 of the Daily Sun. At the bottom plate of the Daily Sun newspaper, government rolls out plans for post-COVID-19 justice system. With a rider, witness can give evidence through NTA stations. That story is on page 28. No plan to rename Imo State University after Carrie. That's coming from the Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodinma. You find that story on page 26. Edo provides life insurance, special allowances for health workers. With a rider, Oba of Benin calls for total lockdown. You find that story on page 6 and 29. 753 million debt hinders slash in electricity bills. That's coming from a consultant, and you find that story on page 25. And then you see the graphic illustration of the number of confirmed cases in Nigeria just by the side at the bottom plate of the Daily Sun newspaper. It's quite an alarming number, going up every day, Bayo.
Yes, indeed. As of today, we have 665. Kano alone yesterday recorded 23 new cases. This is within the 11 days that it started having cases there. On the whole, 38 new cases were recorded yesterday throughout Nigeria. And the breakdown quickly shows that Gombe had 5, Kaduna 3, Borno and Abia had 2, Ekiti, Sokoto and Federal Capital Territory had 1 each. With 665 cases and 188 discharged, Nigeria has active cases of 487. Sokoto and Abia, as well as Gombe, recorded their first cases. Lagos so far has had 376, FCT 89, Kano 59, also 20, Oyo 16, Edo 15, Ogun and Katsina 12 each. Akwa Ibom has caught up with Kwara, Kaduna with 9 cases each. We have so far lost 22 of our compatriot Nigerians to the cold hand of COVID-19. Lagos recorded no case. Perhaps we are beginning to see the peak reached, and then maybe now the curve will begin to come down. Similarly, the Federal Capital Territory recorded just only 1 case yesterday, and therefore, if the prospects of house-to-house tests that they are carrying, the community testing is continuing, then there's every tendency that we might succeed in reducing the curve that is going on. Across Nigeria to Kaduna, Governor Nasiru El-Rufai has refuted online reports that indicate that he has been moved to an intensive care unit in Lagos Hospital. He says a nice ICU picture will help debunk the evil news. He posted a bearded photograph of himself. El-Rufai has grown beards, and he said, "I have not shaven since I went into isolation 24 days ago." He is in isolation at a wing of the government house, Kaduna, and he is also being treated by doctors of the Kaduna State Ministry of Health. He said he has chosen to wear a beard for COVID-19 to look and to also remember the pandemic. He says when the pandemic passes, and he prays that very soon it will all be over. Meanwhile, the Presidential Task Force of COVID-19 says it acknowledges and apologizes for the mistake made regarding the burial of the late Chief of Staff to the Mr. President. He said, "We realize crowd control failed. We also ensure that in future events that adequate regulated procedure will be followed." They assured that the body of the late Chief of Staff was prepared in accordance with the Nigerian Center for the Disease Control Regulations, as well as the tenets of Islamic faith. On why they have not isolated, they explained that to isolate require 3 conditions. 1, if there are symptoms. Secondly, if they had been contact with the case. And thirdly, if they are coming from an endemic area. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has indicated that victims of COVID-19, that is the dead bodies, are not generally infectious. The World Health Organization says cavities, that is dead bodies of hemorrhagic fever, Ebola, Lassa fever, Marburg, and also cholera could be contagious. However, for COVID-19, people should be allowed to pay their respect to their loved ones. The World Health Organization says cremation, which some people have resorted to, is a matter of culture and not of medical necessity. So there are, however, safety protocols that are supposed to be observed. They also indicate that carelessness with autopsy about the lungs of dead coronavirus victims can actually be infectious, but not the dead body. So those are the cautions about it. The other concerns are the issues of our movement, some of which Kingsley read now. In spite of lockdown in the Federal Capital Territory, Lagos and Ogun State, and some other states, there are now some movements. Governor Aminu Waziri Tambuwal has advised an indigene of the state not to dare to come to Sokoto because there was indication that his son had returned from Dubai and had tested positive. Therefore, he has asked him to remain in base. In fact, he left specific instruction to security that if he dares come to Sokoto, he should be escorted back to base. Governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Sule, has also asked 13 persons returning from Kano and Lagos to self-isolate upon arriving. At a meeting with traditional rulers and religious leaders yesterday, he also identified that 43 persons who were returning from Lagos were intercepted at Akwanga. They were on their way to Jos. Therefore, he detailed security to escort them to Jos and also detailed his brother governor in Jos to ensure that when they reach, they are isolated. You may recall that a trailer load of people who were coming from Lagos, over 50 of them, were turned back from Niger. The secretary to the government of the state, who is the chairman of the task force, detailed security men to escort them back to where they are going. And in Taraba too, they spotted those who were coming from Lagos and they were on their way to Jalingo. They, however, ensured that they were escorted to Jalingo, and when they arrived, escorted to Yola, and when they arrive at Adamawa, there will be assurance that they will be isolated. So much of the efforts that are made now is to ensure that people stay at home. The danger now is that people who are traveling across the nation are now becoming potential conveyors of the virus across the country.
There's no question about that, Bayo. I mean, the last statement you just made, Kano, for instance, had its first case on account of a traveler from Abuja, to Kano, and so it's very important that they continue to take those measures. Very important points that you have also raised. But, in the U.S., I'm just wondering, say in the New York and New Jersey area, you have seen visuals of mass burial of victims of COVID-19. I mean, such mass burials are usually what you refer to as a pauper's burial. Now, I don't know whether it's on account of the fact that, fine, maybe the families are unable to undertake the cost of the burial of such persons, or whether it's on medical grounds, to prevent infection, of other persons. Now, there are also claims that in parts in New Jersey that such cadavers, that's to say the dead bodies, are usually not released to the families. So I think it's something that the experts will have to further clarify. The best is, of course, to adopt the most viable option in the circumstance to prevent retransmission. We do know from Ebola that the dead body of an Ebola victim is highly contagious, and that's what we saw in West Africa, when the incident broke 6 years ago. So
I think that's why the World Health Organization came with the clarification. There was initial fear that the bodies could be contagious, and that is why you have instances of mass burial. Even in some countries, it was outright cremation they were doing, set the bodies ablaze and then make sure that at least all dangers of suspicion about transmission is eliminated. But World Health has clarified that the body, if handled properly, is not contagious. The other story that I like to draw attention to, that the Sultan of Sokoto says that with Ramadan this year will be a little different, particularly under the lockdown. Accordingly, he has enjoined all faithfuls to avoid congregational prayers. In the statement signed by the Secretary General of the Jamaat Nasratul Islam, the statement stated categorically that all the nafilas for Ramadan, especially the non-obligatory prayers, should be held at home. This covers the Taraweeh, and he says that originally Taraweehs can be observed at home. He also said that tafsir, which are the lectures, Islamic lectures that are carried around, as well as the Taraweeh, the evening prayers, are non-obligatory, and therefore they should be ceased forthwith until the situation result otherwise. Muslims are also enjoined to look out for the crescent of the Ramadan towards the weekend for the commencement of the Ramadan fast.
All right, Bayo, while we are still on this, the story that is just breaking now concerns the former Attorney General of the Federation, Chief Richard Akinjide. The news says that he's just passed on. He was 88 years old. Richard Akinjide, of course, was Attorney General and Minister of Justice during the Second Republic. And his daughter also became a minister under the presidency of Goodluck Jonathan.
Yes, was a minister.
So Chief Richard Akinjide, one more time, has passed away. May his soul rest in peace. Okay, I just wanted, before you take the editorial, Bayo and I had an interaction before the program started this morning. Of course, usually before you come on air, to prevent the glare, from your faces, you have to have some makeup. So Bayo then said, look, Kingsley, stop rubbing pancake. And what occurred to me was, look, maybe we'll consider the implication or the impact of coronavirus on the cosmetics industry. Why am I saying that? Because if you're having to wear this face mask, will you still be needing lipstick and makeup? Because after you do all the makeup, I don't know whether the face mask is compatible with lipstick, because it will stain it. And this thing is very expensive.
It's disposable now. You're not supposed to wash it and use it.
It's disposable, but it's expensive. It's 500 naira per one. So you have to consider the cost of the lipstick and the cost of the face mask. Bayo, what do you think?
I don't want to be part of this debate.
You should be asking me, not Bayo.
I don't want to be part of this debate. The caution is the best guide in COVID-19. Ultimately, there was a record. It was a hit song in the 60s. Yes.
I think it was by the Eastern something band. In those days, they used to have this record, Philips, 45 revolutions per minute.
On gramophone.
It was, on gramophone. But this one was, you had the stylus. It's good. Oh, baby, you too raw pancake. Now, wait till you go to make you stop pancake.
Please.
So, wait till you go to make you stop pancake. It looks like coronavirus is probably there.
He's stopping the pancake. Yeah,
oh, my God. Women will be looking at you today and touching your nose on the screen, I believe.
No, I'm not touching it.
Okay, now let's now go to the editorial, and it's sort of apt for our discussion this morning on community transmission, stemming community transmission in Nigeria, and it's talking about states must wake up to COVID-19. I'm just going to read a little out of it. With rising numbers of infections and fatalities across Nigeria, it is now a settled matter that coronavirus, that is COVID-19, which was imported into the country last February by an Italian, is a reality. You know, until recently, when most Nigerians were confronted with the devastating effect of the virus through the death of prominent Nigerians, some doubters, including top functionaries of government across board, had played down the nature, occurrence, and impact of the virus.
Yes, and the editorial by leadership is happened on the fact that it is not enough for the federal government to close down Lagos, FCT, and Ogun State when many states have not shut down. And it is emphasizing the danger of community transmission because across the country. And the editorial is observing that many chief executives of states are paying lip service, others are playing to the gallery, while some are even playing politics with this. And he points out that they should take positive measures, and he cites the example, a commendable example of Edo State, where he says that apart from setting up a committee, they actually also instituted an epidemiological study to ensure that they will be able to provide a guide how to seek out and look out for the COVID-19. But the editorial asks conclusively that the Edo State that had recorded about 19 cases would have done far less if the Edo State had shut down the state. And therefore, apart from Edo State, the editorial is recommending that all states should shut down so that we can take bold steps to eliminate the community spread. Don't forget that the Oba who already second has just lended his voice that they should be shut down. And I think that charity should begin from home, Edo State.
All right, Bayo Atobi, we'd like to thank you for being with us. And so we'll see you again tomorrow. And while you leave now, please go search for that song I was singing a while ago. Oh, baby, you too rock. It was a high life hit song. You won't miss it. So, all right, Jume. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll get ahead with our principal item for discussion this morning.
Good household hygiene is essential to keep your family safe. Did you know that the sodium hypochlorite, the active ingredient in hypo bleach, is equipped to fight viruses and germs? Add some bleach to water, soak a clean napkin in diluted bleach, and wipe off germs from common contact surfaces. Wipe off with hypo. Disinfect your home with hypo bleach always.
Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
The coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, is spreading at an alarming rate all over the globe, including Nigeria. With the number of infected persons in Nigeria increasing daily, prevention is better than cure. Coronavirus has no cure. The virus spreads from one person who affects two persons, and by the time the affected person is isolated, the two persons have affected four, and it keeps spreading. You must take preventive measures to save yourself and that of the people around you. Always wash your hands with soap and water. Put distance between yourself and others. Whenever you cough or sneeze, cover your mouth. Clean and disinfect surfaces. Stay at home if you're sick and contact the proper authorities. Together, we can cut down the spread of the coronavirus. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest TV network.
Welcome there. Have you washed your hands?
Inside my house again. This thing not the key black man.
I don't know if it's misinformation or poor hygiene that will kill you first. Coronavirus is real, and good hygiene practice will save your life. Anyway, no hand washing, no eating.
I will not take care of it. How's one of the parents? Is real and it's on the rise. But you can help yourself and help others to be safe. Remember, we can stop the spread. It's in your hands.
This message is from the Akinfade Foundation in partnership with the National Orientation Agency and support from MacArthur Foundation.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, in view of the COVID-19 pandemic we are currently challenged with, we at Al-Habibiyya Islamic Society enjoin all Muslims to adhere strictly to government directives geared towards stopping the spread of the virus. These measures include the stay-at-home order, washing of hands with soap and water, using hand sanitizers where water is not available, and other hygiene measures. We remind you all of the words of Allah in the Holy Quran, chapter 2, verse 195, which says, "And do not throw yourselves with your own hands into destruction." We also remind you of the hadith of the noble Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, which says, "Do not cause harm or return harm." Please stay at home and stay safe with continuous dua. This message is from Project Itfine of Al-Habibiyya Islamic Society. Al-Habibiyya Islamic Society, from Allah to you, a light.
I just don't understand this coronavirus thing. Is it real?
See, coronavirus, known as COVID-19, it's a global problem and has killed thousands of people in China, Italy, Spain, UK, US, and other countries around the world.
Okay. Now, why are they saying that we should stay home?
Because if you go outside and get in contact with someone who is infected, you become infected and then come back home, affect your family. That's how it happens in other countries.
Now, please, help me explain what this social distance is all about.
See, as we are now, the virus travels through the air and by touch. We must maintain 6 foot distance at all times.
Oh, so it's not by washing my hands with soap and water or hand sanitizer that is only important?
Washing of our hands regularly is very important. But we must come together and fight this virus like we did Ebola. It is our responsibility to each other.
As you can see, I'm at home. I'm reading a book. When I get bored, I watch movies. Life has not stopped. Together we can beat this thing. All we have to do is make sure we do the necessary things, which is wash our hands, use a hand sanitizer, frequently wash your hands with soap. Please avoid crowded environments, crowded places. If you must head out maybe to get groceries, use the face mask. So please stay safe, stay responsible, and stay at home.
And to begin our discussion on curbing community transmission, let's take the report by Kunle Ade.
The history of COVID-19 in Nigeria could be traced to February 27, 2020, when an Italian on a consultancy job tested positive in Lagos State. From Nigeria's index case, the virus has spread to virtually every state in the country, and as at the last count, the confirmed number of cases in Nigeria is above 600. The federal government and subnational governments have been taking proactive steps to contain the virus by telling people to stay at home and maintain personal hygiene. Consequently, this began when President Muhammadu Buhari ordered cessation of movements in the FCT, Lagos and Ogun states to aid contact tracing of patients, while some states' governments also took similar steps. As the cases kept rising, the federal government again extended the lockdown by another 2 weeks, with some state governments also extending their lockdown order. At different times, those involved in the containment of the virus have stressed that community transmission will be the last hurdle to cross if Nigeria intends to defeat the virus. Experts said strict compliance to the stay-at-home order and social distances are fundamentals in this regard. With obstinate refusal of some to adhere to this directive, is the spread of coronavirus imminent in Nigeria, more so that cases of COVID-19 are being detected in communities least expected as states embarked on community testing? Who and who are at risk in the communities? Is house-to-house testing necessary to curb community transmission? Detailed answers in a moment.
Many thanks, Kunle Adeyeye, for that background. Now, with us to discuss this issue in further detail, let's welcome our very regular guest, Professor Abdulsalami Nasidi. He's former Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, and he's also now currently the Vice Chair of the FCT Ministerial Expert Committee on COVID-19. Professor Nasidi, a pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Pleasure, thank you.
Also here with us in the studios is Dr. Godwin Ntadom. He is the Chief Consultant Epidemiologist of the Federation. Dr. Ntadom, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
We also have in the studio with us is Dr. Josephine Okechukwu, Director, FCT Department of Public Health and Human Services. Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming. Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria. And joining us from our Kano studio is Professor Isa Sadiq Abubakar, Director, Center for Infectious Diseases Research, Bayero University, Kano, and member Kano State Task Force on COVID-19. Welcome to the program. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Nigerians. I welcome my boss, Dr. Nasidi, and my friend Ntadom.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Sadiq. We have a Skype connection. We have a Skype connection from Lagos, and that is Dr. Rita Oladile. If we can have her on the screen now, she's a consultant, clinical microbiologist at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital. She's also a senior lecturer at the University of Lagos. Dr. Rita Oladile, a pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you so much for having me with you on the program. I look forward to a very interesting discussion.
Very much. A great deal of clarity of the signals from your Skype. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, our delight to have you on Good Morning Nigeria. Let's begin with the Chief Consultant Epidemiologist of the Federation. We see what the latest numbers are, well over 660 now in terms of number of persons who've contracted the coronavirus and the tally of the fatalities. But give us a sense of what your reading is of the state of coronavirus, just beyond the numbers that have been captured so far. Dr. Ntadom.
Thank you very much. We will now begin to notice the gradual progression. The initial cases were imported, people traveling from abroad coming into the country. They were tested, the suspected ones were kept, and those ones that were positive were isolated. And along the line, we started noticing few contacts, that is direct contacts with those coming into the country. But anywhere you talk about this virus, everybody's afraid of the community transmission. Because community, when it gets into the community, everything changes. And what it means is that if you can go to public places, you can go to market, schools, if one person gets infected, it goes round. And that is the fear now. We are moved to that stage where the thing has moved to the communities. And this is where the fear is. Because it has become like a war now. Everybody has to do something specific to ensure that it doesn't get to him or her. So that's the situation. And we can see the rise. Initially, it was addition of 1 per day, 2 per day. A few days ago, we got 80-something cases. That is the fear. Very soon, if something positive is not done, it moves from 80-something to 100 and something, 200 and something, then it moves to 1,000. We pray we don't get to that stage. That's the way it is now.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Ntadom. Professor Abdulsalami Nasidi, let's bring you in here as well. Give us a sense of what we're also dealing with, and is there any comparative example that with Ebola or with community spread of COVID-19?
Well, thank you. The most important is when the pandemic or epidemic now enters community transmission, it means it's virtually leaving that level of transmission where you could track, who had it, who contacted who. But as Dr. Ntadom has said, in the community, the virus is like has a field, open field to do whatever it wants. So now everything is determined by the following. One, our readiness to be able to handle that virus, because it means the virus is already ahead of us. The characteristics of that community, how many vulnerable groups are there, and so on and so forth. Then, the availability of, what it takes to actually, contain the virus, like, our ability to decontaminate, our ability to reach the people, to self-educate them, to say, you need personal hygiene, environmental hygiene, and so on and so forth. Then also, it is so crucial that, movement of the people, is no longer easy to control. So the virus has multiple pathways to spread. Unlike before, that it was among the elite and you could, but now right inside the community, it's very difficult for you to track. So the best thing to do is the approach that, the South Koreans took. Go in, screen as many as you can, pick the positive ones and keep them away. Then the other ones that are not, you can't listen, you know what to do with them. But I'm sure Dr. Okechukwu will give more details. If, let's say, I mentioned one characteristic of our community. You go into a community and, you pick one that is positive. And maybe there are 6, 7, 8 in one room, poor people. So now you take the positive one and take away, and then the remaining 6, there is like virtually like they are contaminated already, so you don't know. So if you leave them, are you thinking that this is the one that is positive? Maybe after 1 week, some of those 2 become positive. So what do you do with those? So the strategy is quarantine. She will talk more about it. So, well, there are other more things to say, but let her talk.
Okay. Dr. Josephine, talking about decontamination of areas, and Abuja is not different from other cities of the world. We have our peculiar slums, in strategic areas across the FCT. Decontamination, how has it been? What is the success story? Has it been ongoing?
Yes, when we look at it, if we look at China case, China achieved a lot when they went on to do decontamination of their environment. The cases dropped, the transmission dropped tremendously. So for us, it's a success story. We should all realize that COVID-19 is a new problem that the whole world is facing. The challenges we are going through is not peculiar to Nigeria. The whole world have the same challenge. The contamination does a lot because the virus, it kills the virus, whether we like it or not. So when we decontaminate, we've been decontaminating our environment, but the good thing we need to do here is to focus on those communities. When we are talking about community transmission, we know the structure of our communities, the way they are so jam-packed, they are like slums. Most of them are slums where you don't even have access. In the compound where people live, they all live together. It's so tight. And we need to decontaminate. It's going to be a challenge for us in Nigeria. Our way of life is different from the outside world, where everything is structured. People live in homes that maybe 2 or 3 can stay in a home, or 2 people share a room. But here you have a family of up to 8 in one room. So if you're talking about decontamination, it will still work. But then we need to do other things. Like Prof. had rightly said, we need to screen. There must be massive screening of the communities to triage the people that are positive, that have this infection, move them out. Because for you to handle infection appropriately, adequately, you need to identify people that are already infected, move them out of that place so that transmission will be less. Then you now concentrate on the people that are high risk. The high risk now can be quarantined. It's still necessary to move them out of that environment, because as long as they are still there, there will still be possibility of ongoing transmission that might be endless. So we should look at how are we going to handle the people that are already infected, then people that are high risk, then go ahead and keep on decontaminating. Decontamination of such communities should be a regular and periodic one, not just one-time decontamination. It works perfectly well, but we need to be doing it periodically until the virus is cleared from the system.
Well, I want to, Dr. Okechukwu, thank you very much. I thought Professor Nasidi was leading you on to deal with the practical challenges that we might face in seeking to curb community transmission in very crowded neighborhoods and homes. You've already started speaking about that, but could you tell us some more? Because it says, look, in a location where you have, say, 6 or more persons living in an apartment, and you pick out one who is positive, what do you do with the other 5 or 4 who might a week later develop symptoms and therefore might also be quarantined? But how then do you deal with the escalation of the fact that those 4 or 5 persons during the period that they were asymptomatic might have interacted with others? How do you deal with that kind of very worrisome arithmetic?
It's quite worrisome and challenging. There should be ongoing testing, because when we look at the incubation period of this organism, it's so long. At times it could be up to 3 weeks, beyond 3 weeks, even up to 1 month. Some people, when they get exposed, they develop these symptoms immediately, they manifest it. Some incubate this organism for a longer period. So there should be a system put in place where everybody will be tested periodically. I might be negative today. In the next 2-3 days or 1 week or 2 weeks time, I become positive. So the system or structure should be put in place where everybody will have access to regular testing, periodic testing. After triaging, removing people that are contaminated or people that are infected, still go back and let everybody in that community be regularly tested until there is zero transmission in the environment. Just like I said earlier, our system is structured in such a way that the slums are so tight that there must be serious awareness creation, community sensitization across board. And then we should tell the community pharmacists, the community medical people, especially the pharmacists, the medical stores that people patronize in the communities, because the doctors there, they are saying that they should know where to stop. It's a cause of concern for us now, right? When we are having this experience of community transmission, many of them would have been infected. Many of them will still be treating these patients, believing that it will clear. So they should know where to stop. And I think it's better for them now to stop treating any patient that comes with the symptoms of COVID-19 and refer them as appropriate to go and get tested. So testing is key for everybody in the communities now. So we shouldn't go limiting ourselves to the criteria for testing. Everybody, Nigeria should start thinking of how to screen everybody in the community. So that
thank you very much, Dr. Okechukwu. Yeah, we'll return to you. Let's go over to the Kano Network Center. Professor Isa Sadiq Abubakar, who is also Director of Center for Infectious Disease Research at Bayero University. We've heard the expression community. What is a community in the context of our conversation? And where you are in Kano, what do you think lies ahead?
Well, thank you very much for that question. A community has been defined in public health as a group of people who live together in a geographical environment and they are related by certain characteristics. However, in our own setting and for the purpose of this illness, we still maintain the definition of people living within a geographical area, be it a settlement, a political ward, a local government, or a state. Now, when we are talking of the transmission within the community, and especially in places like northern Nigeria, which is characterized by large population of people with different age groups, and most of them are poor and ignorant, you will find out that this is a perfect recipe for a transmission that is going to be in large numbers. And as we are now talking, we are facing a situation in Kano now where, as far as I'm concerned, the chief consultant epidemiologist of the Federation should look more towards places like Kano, for the fact that Kano has the largest population in Nigeria, and it is a population that is largely ignorant, and poverty rate is very high in a state like Kano. As a result of that, you find out that measures taken in other places that are working may not be easy to implement here in Kano. For example, the state government has been up and doing, and it has followed the measures one step after the other. We are now at a stage where everybody is expected to remain at home and to maintain social distances as well as other measures. But you find that there are so many challenges with this. In the initial aspect, the first 2 days, people obeyed these rules, and most of the time they were found at home. But on the third and fourth day, it is disheartening to say that people are continuing to go about their normal duties. One thing that is very sad is even among the youths that are still organizing football tournaments. Some of them call it Corona Cup. That is very disheartening. And it is something that will ensure that this infection continues to spread. Not only that, we have a large army of beggars, the Almajiris. Although the state government has come out with a law that banned begging in the state months ago, you find out that a large number of these Almajiris are still in town. The state government has taken a decision 2 days ago to ensure that each child returns back to his or her parents. I think this is the time when the state government should not relax on this. Children have to go back to their parents' houses, because the large number of children helps in ensuring that this spread continues. And one other thing that will help us is to ensure that we do massive screening. And as Professor Nasidi and Dr. Okechukwu have mentioned, it is very important that we go into the communities, identify, we will conduct a survey to try to identify every single case that is out there in the community. To do that, we must ensure that we have larger number of testing centers. In Kano, a single testing center that can do not more than 200 in a day is not enough. And so the figures we are now witnessing is just a child's play. It is because the laboratory support is very minimal and cannot go beyond what is possible. And that is why the figures are still intense. I believe that if we have a facility that can do more than 1,000 in a day, I assure you that you will witness a rising number from a place like Kano to a very big number. Why am I saying this? We are now witnessing in Kano a phenomenon where people are reported to be dying in large numbers. Although there are a lot of exaggeration to do with this, but as a medical doctor working in Kano, I can assure you that my colleagues who have been working in different hospitals have been reporting similar events. Some of them are even their relatives. My colleagues, medical doctors that are in the front line of case management, are reporting cases that they have seen in the hospitals, and they are afraid because those people are having classical symptoms of a respiratory illness, most of which are likely to be COVID-19. And the fact that we are having these dates, especially among the elderly, could have pointed out to the fact that we are witnessing a large number of COVID-19 spread in the society. Although I also agree with some explanations that now that the health system is concentrating on the control of COVID-19, other people with other chronic illnesses are now not getting the support that they were getting from the normal health sector. For example, people with chronic kidney diseases, people with uncontrolled diabetes, people with hypertension, as well as its complications, and cancers, and so many other conditions that require regular attention. So this might also explain part of the reasons why people must be dying. But I believe that the federal government should look at Kano very seriously, because the condition we are witnessing, even though we do not have real statistics on this, but it calls for greater investigation. Even the state governor, Dr. Abdullah Umar Ganduje, has instructed the State Ministry of Health to conduct a survey to ensure that the causes of these deaths have been unraveled. I think that Kano has reached a stage where, personally, I believe that Kano cannot do it alone. It requires serious help from the federal government of Nigeria, and if possible, even the World Health Organization should come to the aid of a place like Kano, because if we are not able to win the war in a state that has the highest population, that is highly ignorant, and poverty is ravaging everywhere, I believe that Kano may be the worst case scenario in the whole world. We are not praying for that, but then we have to do the needful. Thank you.
Professor Isa Siddiq Abubakar, you know, the virus now defies land borders and all these artificial, borders. What beats me? Let's take a step back, please. Can you tell us why it took Kano so long to lock down? Briefly, please.
You know, Kano is a very complicated society. There are a lot of issues that the government had looked at. As health workers, we have earlier advised the government to lock down Kano to ensure that people are not coming into the state. And the governor of Kano State took the right step by taking a decision to ensure that, apart from closing the airports, that was the first stage, we reached a stage where the borders from all angles coming into the state were locked down. But you know, as human beings, there are a lot of challenges. The people working were pressed on. So many people were coming in large numbers from the southern states, from other parts of Nigeria, and because people felt that they belonged to Kano or other states in the far north. So I can say, as far as I'm concerned, that the state took the decision to lock the borders in good time. But you find out that there are so many loopholes, so many other channels through which people sneaked into the town without the law enforcement agents knowing how and when they came in. This ensured that many people came into the states without us knowing. And apart from that, you find out that many other reasons why people should continue to go about their normal duties and continue to spread the infection proliferated. And so it was a very big challenge. And now we have reached a stage where you expect people to stay at home, but many people, they do not obey these regulations. If you go to the major streets in the town, you find out that people in most cases are not there. But go into the nooks and crannies in the city, you find out that people are in large numbers outside their homes, continuing to do their activities. A lot of worshiping places are still open with people in large numbers visiting those places, in spite of all the calls by government, by health workers, and by religious leaders that people can pray at home for reasons that we are witnessing a large number of spread, coupled with the fact that our people are dying. But still you find out that people are not heeding to these advices, and still people are selling items, things that are not even food in some areas. And the worst of it all is the one I have mentioned, that the large number of youths are still gathering in football pitches.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Professor Isa Siddiq Abubakar. I mean, your points, have been very well marshaled and noted. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. The worrisome scenario that you have sketched is one that we get our other guests, to discuss. And indeed, the presidential task force, so obviously, will have a lot to chew on the basis of the information that you have revealed. Let's now invite Dr. Rita Oladile, who's a consultant clinical microbiologist at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital. She's with us via Skype. Dr. Oladile, I mean, tell us, what the issues are with regard to community transmission now of COVID-19 from the microbiological perspective. But while you want to sketch the entire picture, I want you to also please factor this in, because on the basis of received wisdom, I mean, you are told don't touch door handles, don't touch metal surfaces, be careful what you do. The virus could be in the air. If somebody sneezes or coughs, the virus can travel through the droplets for a while. But is there any indication as to how long perhaps the virus might survive on any of these surfaces? And does temperature play a role? I mean, we're in the tropics here, by the way, and you know how high our temperatures can be.
So thank you very much for that. Well, I think I should take them one at a time. Community transmission is on. It's pretty challenging to control. I know NCDC and then particularly Lagos State has been on top of the game. But like my other members of this panelists have talked about, they've also told us the fact that we have a very mobile society. I mean, I was listening to the news and I was hearing of states turning back vehicles carrying people. And I'm like, well, I think we need to do more. The organism does survive in the environment in different surfaces for different but so far data that has come out has shown that most surfaces, even though there are suspicion that it might be airborne, because all the while WHO has told us it was a droplet infection. However, it says aerosols some of the micro droplets could become airborne for a while. So it can survive in the atmosphere maybe for over 24 hours, 2 to 3 days maximum. It's not likely. On surfaces, depending on the kind of material, it's been shown to survive different hours on different materials. And so it's there. The virus is something that's still being actively studied. We don't have all the answers. No one fully understands it. So dead bodies, they said, treat dead bodies as infectious. That was the first directive from WHO. And now WHO is coming out to tell us that, the dead bodies might not be so infectious. So all these are things that we have to take with caution, because the science is unraveling this virus, and it will take us full time before we understand it. But having said that, going forward, what do? We have a peculiar society. We have a society where people live from hand to mouth. We have a society where, like they just told us in Kano, you have the Amajiris out there on the street, and you say they should stay at home. Where's home? The same thing you have in Lagos. You have masses of people that live on the street. They don't have houses, so they can't stay at home. So we have a peculiar challenge as a country in our own, you asked for the definition of a community. Our community is different from other global communities. And then we need to design interventions that will address our peculiarities, not just adopt hook, line, sinker, what WHO gives us. Because WHO doesn't live with us. It doesn't understand our community. So we now need to look at our community. I know the government is trying to bring out some palliative measures. It trickling down is another different ball game altogether. How much of it is getting to the area boys out there? How much of it is getting, so we have a peculiar community in quote, and we need to address it. The transmission is something that our people. We have not educated people. They don't understand why you say they should go hungry and stay at home to break a virus that they believe is a disease of the elites in our society. So we need that community education. We need to break down this virus in our local languages, in little bits where they can understand it, so that we can join hands with everyone to win this battle. Is there a place for training the imams? Is there a place for training pastors? Is there a place for training the traditionalists? Is there a place for training, like the epidemiologist from Abuja said, even the chemist man? Let's break this virus down into little bits that we address the peculiar situations of our community. That the virus survives 3 hours in the year, 3 days in the year, it doesn't matter. What matters is we need to break the chain of transmission. And what matters is we need to get everybody on board. Everybody needs to understand it. You go out in the community, you see people wearing hand gloves. Some people, their lights that can afford it, they have on hand gloves, face masks. And I look at those hand gloves and I cringe, because it's a fantastic way of transmitting the organism in the community. Because when they touch surfaces, because they have hand gloves on, they feel safe, and they take whatever is on that surface and go to another surface and touch it, and go to another surface and touch it. So they're spreading the organism, and then invariably they will touch their faces. So this education needs to get done there. We need everyone to understand, to be on the same page in understanding. So let's break it down. Local languages, Pidgin English, at the level of, I believe you, the boys playing football, we understand it better. If somebody that plays football, that's an enthusiast like themselves, we come and tell them, see, this COVID-19 thing is real. And it is this, that. And bring it to them in their language that they understand. Then we can enforce some of these stay-at-home rules. But right now, people are hungry. So talking about 3 days, it's not really going to get, that message is not going to get across to the man on the street who is hungry. I know the government has put in palliative measures, but it's taking time to trickle down. And then there's so much misinformation on social media that we need to take ownership of the narrative and let Nigerians take ownership of this problem so that we can win this battle. Have I been too passionate?
Dr. Rita, Lagos, Nigeria is a very peculiar place. Our nonchalant attitude to things across the nation since this COVID-19 came into the country, it's not helping matters at all. And, the scarce resources at the disposal of those people who are doing this work, who are risking their lives to do it, And what do we do when we talk about mass testing? People are staying at home, they're hungry, but you need to be alive to eat at the same time. So how can we do? What measures should be taken to ensure that, like Lagos, they went into houses to bring out people who have COVID-19, who refuse to go to the hospital because of stigmatization by the society they live in? How can we curb that?
It's very easy. Like I told you, education is key. And then COVID-19 is not necessarily a death sentence. Okay. We have cases of people who have recovered and have been discharged. We need to educate people. We need to educate them. They need to understand this war that we are fighting. They need to understand the limited information that we have on the enemy, which is the virus right now, so that we can collectively join hands to win this war. Like you said, people are hungry. There are people out there that are hungry. The university lecturers have not received salaries in the last 2 months. And those are, in quote, by Nigeria terminology, elites. So what will you not talk about the man out there in the street? I work at Lagos University Teaching Hospital.
Dr. Oladele, sorry, we are having a freeze on from your Skype connection. Excuse me, I was going to say transmission, connection. You're talking about, in passing, university lecturers haven't been paid for a couple of months. I'm sure that once the issue of IPPIS is resolved, you guys will get paid. I think that was an issue that was on the table for a very long time, apparently not well managed. We have also taken on that issue on this program. But we're still on COVID-19. Let's come back to our guests in the Abuja studios. Professor Nasidi, I have this question for you because in the course of your first intervention, along with Dr. Okechukwu, you talked about, look, part of the most effective ways of breaking community transmission is to target vulnerable groups. And Dr. Okechukwu spoke also about persons who are at high risk. Now, are these terms interchangeable? High risk and vulnerable groups? Assuming they are interchangeable, who are these persons? And then how do you break the transmission amongst this group of persons?
Well, the key is when the virus has entered the community, now we have to, how will I say, like two-headed snake, facing you. One is actually the issue of risk of exposure. You understand me? So who are the people that will be exposed faster in that community? Then the second one is the risk of severity. Who out of these people that get the infection will acquire the severe type of the disease? Luckily, so far in Africa, we are not seeing plenty of these severe cases. But maybe this is because it has not entered the community. So you see in Europe, most of the people that are dying are those group that are actually at risk for severity. And I will come to that. So coming to the issue of risk of exposure. So when it enters the community and starts transmitting, who are the first group of people that could catch the infection? So these are usually the most mobile in the community. Those are the ones that will be able to, catch the infection and spread it faster. So as far as risk for exposure is concerned, you will see that the age group that are active economically, those who sell water, those who do the menial jobs, and those who even serve you in your homes and all this, could be the people that can easily acquire the infection. It could be also people that have other diseases, exposures, like somebody with malaria, his immunity is down, so he will, if there is anything, circulating within that area where you can have 6, 7, 8, 10 people living in an enclosure. So the first to pick it would be those with weak, what do they call it? Immunity. So, exactly. So, also, one of the key decisions is that in the society, if it comes to after acquiring the infection, as you rightly said, who are the people at risk? Who are the people that, at risk for transmission? And who are the people at risk of actually carrying the virus, further? So you now see from what Dr. Okechukwu mentioned in the community when she went, she saw that, no, look, this is a mixed community. The community is characterized by being mixed. Christians, Muslims, different tribal groups, and this and so on and so forth. So depending on their way of life too, they could be more exposed to acquiring the infection. We shall come to talk about that. So that is that. So the people at risk when it enters the community are those whose behavior, will expose them to this virus. One, those who did not listen, those who think it is not a real issue. Two, those who knowingly refuse, to carry out all those advice given, like personal hygiene, wash hand, wear mask, social distancing, as Professor Issa Walker from Kano mentioned. They are the ones at risk. Then the third one is level of education. Whether we like it or not, that affects. When you go to such communities, you will see some people well educated, masters, etc. They don't have job. They will definitely not behave like the others. So those are the high risk groups. When it comes to risk of severity, now in that community you have so many people with underlying diseases. So diabetes, unmanaged diabetes, hypertension, some chronic liver diseases, and so on and so forth. So if such people acquire the infection, they have the chance of going into severe form and die faster. The second group are the older populations. Up till now, even in Europe, in the US, this virus has, propensity to infect more older generation and multiply more in them. So people are saying maybe because the older generation are, having lower immunity or not, and so on and so forth, or, the fact that, their body is already weakened by other underlying diseases, comorbidities we call them, and so on and so forth. Then, finally, you now say that this virus has preference for killing male than women. So women, virtually out of 100 that dies, you have 20, barely have 20 women. Majority are male. So of course, there's research is going on how to establish what is the cause. So this is the risk of severity. So those people that have that chance, to acquire the infection and succumb to the virus, are this group. So these are the two risk areas we should characterize. Now, I don't want to go too much because I don't want to preempt them. How do you handle this? Your strategy will now be based on how you handle it.
Okay, we'll get to talk about that when we return after this break. We'll be right back.
Time of despair, our country, Nigeria, needs us now more than ever. We stand a chance to save our great country, Nigeria. A chance to rise up from this pandemic stronger and better. What will be the gain if we do not learn from other countries and observe the lockdown to stop the further spread of the virus? If we loosen our guards and allow this virus doom our very existence, then what have we gained? This is the call to every Nigerian to unite as one and stop the spread of this deadly virus. Stay at home and stay safe. Remember, the virus doesn't move unless we move. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Nigerians, coronavirus is dangerous. It can kill. When you see this sign, high fever, cough, shortness of breath, drowsiness, pneumonia, don't panic, don't hide, don't embark in self-medication. Promptly visit the nearest medical facility. Report all cases to the nearest hospital. Prevention is key. Avoid contact with infected persons. Avoid crowded areas as much as possible. Wash your hands regularly. Use hand sanitizers. Your life is precious. Stay alive. Live long, live right. This message is sponsored by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture and the Nigerian Film Corporation. Nigerian Film Corporation, powering possibility.
Over the past few seasons, Airtel Touching Lives has helped to empower and uplift thousands of Nigerians. And this season was no different.
People are really suffering. I still have a hope. I know that God doesn't leave things halfway.
Thank you to all our viewers for inviting us into your homes and sharing in our journey as we continue to change lives.
Wetin be this coronavirus thing? Na true?
You see this coronavirus wey be COVID-19. Na the whole world palava, and e don dey kill many people for China, Italy, UK, US, Spain, and even for other countries dem.
Okay, wetin come be the reason wey dem say make everybody tanda for house?
Na because if e dey waka pium go carry am from person wey don get am, you go carry come give your family dem. Na so the thing take dey kill other people for other countries.
Okay, wetin come be that social distancing sef?
You see social distance. Now make we no come close because this thing na from air and touch now we dey contact am. We suppose dey at least 6 foot away from each other every time.
So okay, no be only to wash your hand and to sanitize them alone.
Make we no take this washing of hand thing take play but make we come together, join hand as we take pursue Ebola, pursue this coronavirus. Make we be each other be keepers now.
As a
strong immune system increases the chances of victims surviving COVID-19. A corruption-free society creates opportunities for citizens to thrive and prosper. Build up your immunity. Stop corruption now. This message is from ICPC and Nigerian Television Authority.
Thanks for joining us, and we have been having a conversation on stemming community transmission of COVID-19. And Professor Nasidi made a very, very and pertinent, very important points there on protection. And he actually said that women, are less in the number of deaths since COVID-19 came into this country. Dr. Godwin Tadum, can you tell us why that is possible? What is that naturally protection that protects women from COVID-19?
Well, one good thing Professor Nasidi said is that he didn't say that women are not affected. So I don't want us to have a false confidence that, I'm a woman, I cannot have it. Women are still dying. But scientifically, we have the chromosomes, the X and Y chromosomes. What protects naturally is located in the X chromosomes. Men have one of it, and that is why it's X and Y. Women have double of it. So what it means is that women have an additional advantage, having two protection, while the men, even in children, when you see children that are born, the girl child is most likely to survive than the boy child. So it is just a natural phenomenon. And that of COVID is not different.
Well, that provided the immune system is not compromised.
Yes, because like what Prof said, Professor Nasidi, is also the vulnerable population is talking people who are already aged, who already cannot fight infection, because every disease that enters man, the body has been equipped to fight back.
Yes.
But as you get older, your ability to fight back weakens. And that's why you see more people dying at the older generation. And again, people with comorbidities, people who have other infections may suffer more because they are already suffered some challenges as a result of their lowered immunity.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want very quickly, before we bring in Dr. Okechukwu to take off from where Professor Nasidi stopped, in terms of how to then disrupt transmission amongst the vulnerable and high-risk groups. Professor Isa Sadiq raised some very pertinent issues, and indeed, gave you, as chief epidemiologist of the Federation, if you like, a slate of requests, if not demands, as to how to focus on Kano. What's your reaction to what he said?
Yes, I think I must. This issue has been on. First, NCDC has been doing a lot. Immediately the challenges in Kano started, officers were deployed to Kano to strengthen the system there. What Professor Sadiq said is just the truth. That is the fear. If it enters a population like Kano, it will be very, very difficult. Now, the achievement you can get in COVID control is about 75 to 80% the people. Then the additional will be the system. If the people don't do anything positive, there is nothing the system can do. And that is why we have to concentrate more on educating the people, especially at community level. To test everybody, resources are not there. I must tell you, the Honorable Minister of Health, the Honorable Minister for State for Health, and the Permanent Secretary, with all the agencies and the departments concerned, are meeting every day, no holiday. They met on Easter Day, they met on Easter Friday, they met on Easter Monday on these issues. And the proper way will still be to the community begin to remove that denial, self-denial. It's not there, it cannot affect the black man, is this. All those ones are not true. We have to begin to do, because even the health system has a capacity, a level they will reach, and they will not be able to do more. Especially what we are experiencing in some countries like in Italy, now in Spain, where the system is completely overwhelmed. We don't want it to get to that point. The world will not be able to. So for Kano State, and I'm happy, the Honorable Commissioner for Health in Kano is a field epidemiologist. And we have more field epidemiologists in Kano more than any state in Nigeria. So we have the capacity within Kano to handle any situation. But the problem, like Professor Sadiq said, is the people. If you can tame the people, and it's not the work of the health workers to do that, it's the community leaders, opinion leaders, the politicians, everybody in Kano that the people will listen to. We have to talk to them to understand, because if you don't break the transmission, the disease will continue to multiply. There's nothing you can do about it.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ntadom. Let's bring in now Dr. Okechukwu. Dr. Okechukwu, Professor Nasidi stopped somewhere, to enable you take off to say, look, what are the most effective ways of disrupting the transmission amongst the high risk and vulnerable groups? And in particular, how do you, I'm looking for a right word, but let me just say invade, or penetrate a community? How do you decide? Is it just random? You get into, say, Mpape or Lugbe, somebody come and say, oh, you come, all right, we're going to start. How do you do that? Because, again, in terms of enlightenment or public education, if a wrong step is taken, you might get resistance.
Yeah. When you look at disease transmission, to really break the transmission, you need to identify the source of infection. Identifying the source, one, and then look at the carriers and the vulnerable people, the at-risk population. We all know that COVID-19 is a challenge globally. The source of infection now, if it is the community where you have transmission coming up, you need to know how many people are infected, what are the age distribution, then how is it being transmitted, what are the commonest means of transmission, which we all know. So that means educating the community is key. Just like the previous speaker have said, we make sure that everybody knows what COVID-19 is, the preventive measure, and then to enforce that this measure has been put in place. We've been doing a lot of community sensitization. Then enforcement is a problem, right? People, when you look at it, many people have heard about it, but just still attitude. The major challenge we are having now is attitudinal. When we change our behavior towards so many infectious diseases, we will achieve a lot. Then the community leaders too should be in place to help. The fight against COVID-19 is multi-sectoral, and a lot of stakeholders need to come in. We don't leave it only to government or the health sector. We cannot do it alone. Everybody must come on board, in as much as we are talking about community transmission here now, right? So we go into the community, start screening people, like what we did in the community where we are having transmission now that is worrisome to us. We went in there, we screened, we did a lot of sensitization, invited them. So for the people that now came out to be positive, we need to start tracing their contacts. Contact tracing is very key. Who and who, I have had one level of interaction with the confirmed cases in any form. Though when you come into a community that is so choky, it's a problem, because in such community, everybody is high risk. Everybody is a contact, right? So the best thing is to make sure that you keep on sensitizing and then keep on screening, and then let them enforce the use of face masks is key. Whether we like it or not, it is still, COVID-19 has some level of being airborne. So let us not deceive ourselves, because if not, we keep on fighting an endless battle. So everybody should observe the hand washing, use of sanitizer, face masks, and every preventive measure, and make sure that people that are infected, many people have been confirmed, but some of them cannot be traced. Some of them have disappeared from the community. Tracing them to wherever they went to, and community too should make sure that these people that are infected should be fished out and handed over to the medical personnel for treatment. Without treatment, the transmission will keep on going on in the community.
So the key word here is More education, more awareness.
Yes.
And, people doing the right thing.
The right thing, yes.
Okay, we have a number of tweets that came in, and we'd like to read them to you now. Daily Jack Solomon tweets, when are we going to learn a lesson? There are over 50,000 death cases here in the U.S. and still counting. Donald Trump extended the lockdown towards end of May. This is a country with at least high level of compliance to states' regulations and policy. Why are we not complying?
Now, Amogbalahon has this tweet. It says that it's saddening that with rising cases, there are states where people are still prone to contracting the disease because of their proximity to the epicenter, and there is no lockdown in such states. Some Nigerians have proved that they require minimum force to do what's right. Only those who are alive can speak of hunger. Only yesterday, a picture of a large fleet of cars on 3rd Mainland Bridge surfaced online.
Exactly, Kingsley. Reverend Manny Akpan tweets, there is no solution to this issue considering our peculiar situation. The government at all levels must ensure that total lockdown of the whole country for at least 21 days. This is a price citizens must be willing to pay if we are to win this war. Every other measure is secondary.
Festus Akimboyewa says with the known number of infections and fatalities, every Nigerian should know that coronavirus is real. Now, those who are still going around spreading it should be arrested and taken to isolation centers.
And Chris Simon is tweeting, many communities don't believe that COVID-19 is real. What the government and civil society groups should do is to create awareness campaign and sensitize the people about the dreaded disease and how they should take precautionary measures.
Titus Mondenok, no matter how much you enlighten people, some will still behave otherwise, and so those who refuse to stay at home should be punished to deter others from doing the same.
And Law Alpha C tweets, curbing community transmission is a responsibility for all and sundry. By sticking to recommended safety measures, government also requires accurate and truthful information and records from Nigerians to combat the ravaging pandemic.
Now, Mike Anyakwa, curbing community transmission, especially in our rural and semi-urban areas, is a very big task because letters of social distancing may not be strictly adhered to.
And Badamasi Haruna Adamu, a lot of sensitization should be done using the PHC, traditional councils and youth associations in the communities. More so, the government should provide more testing materials that will go around the PHC in the country.
Now, Innocent Yalwa James tweets, community transmission is a real threat to all and sundry. House-to-house search where index cases were recorded can help in trapping cases, thereby determining whether there should be a partial lockdown in the affected states.
And Chidi Amadi tweets, house-to-house checks will help. This again brings up the need for Nigeria actually to have a data of its citizens.
Now, Ohaku David tweets, Nigeria Police Force and sister agencies are everywhere without protection such as face masks and hand gloves. They are being exposed daily serving this nation, but it seems nobody is looking at that impending danger.
And somebody is responding to Kisley's no makeup using the face masks, Jumwe V Tabak. Kisley said the right thing. The other day I was going to H Medics to buy sanitizers and I actually discovered I do not need to wear makeup with my face mask on. So please save your makeup, ladies.
So that's going to impact the cosmetics industry once coronavirus.
Well, for me, I cannot save it because I have to make up and go on air.
For you to be on air, but this she wasn't doing this to be on air. Don't forget that High Life song we sang while we're doing this for review. Adeoba Oluwaseun, curbing community transmission boils down to the fact that the vulnerable is at the community level, and if the government is not putting relief packages in place, people will not adhere to social distancing.
And Abdul tweets, citizens must abide by the guidelines stipulated by the authorities, and the authorities too must do whatever possible to ameliorate the suffering of the citizens. They are going through distribution of palliatives must be vigorously enhanced and to the right people.
You have this from Akejo Olagbaju, says the containment plan for community transmission must be revisited to activate a response to protect rural communities.
And Steve Bond 007, only stay at home would prevent it, and to make them stay at home, people must have the adequate palliatives as soon as possible. If they have, they won't go out.
Mike, what we need to do in Nigeria is to block all the entries.
Nangdom Guyep, government and individuals should also be prepared for the aftermath of the situation. God help Nigeria and deliver Nigerians. Amen.
All right, those are the tweets that we can accommodate in the meantime. I want to return to Professor Isa Sadiq Abubakar in Kano. Professor Abubakar, you listened to the response by the Chief Consultant Epidemiologist of the Federation here with us in the Abuja studios in terms of what he says. Look, Kano ordinarily has the requisite personnel to map out all of the issues that are required and then proceed to tackling the spread of COVID-19. So you may wish to respond to that. But there's something else I want to bring up. I've just been debating that whether or not I should say, but permit me to say because we have also discussed it on Good Morning Nigeria. Now, you talked about the youth in Kano still organizing football matches. They call it Corona Cup and all of that. Now, how would you reconcile that, the risk of transmission through organizing such Corona Cup, with 2 points that have been raised on Good Morning Nigeria by the experts? They say, one, if you boost your immune system, then, of course, you have a better chance of fighting off the virus. And one way of boosting your immune system is to soak in vitamin D, which you get best when you have sun. So you play the football matches outdoors, so you have access to the sun. That boosts your immunity. Plus exercise, which is what football does. So how do you reconcile this? That's part of it. Plus, of course, the peculiarities in Kano. I just want us to clarify this point.
Okay. Thank you very much. It is clear that people who engage in exercise or expose themselves to whatever stand to benefit from some of those exposures or some of those activities that ensure one physically moves. But when you compare that alongside what is happening when people come together, you find out that the benefit you derive from such exercises are not as good as if you distance yourself from people when you confine yourselves to your family houses. This is because as you try to come out and engage in those exercises, you come closer to one another, and people who are infected will infect a larger number of people than. So what other forms of exercises can one engage while also obeying the social distancing and stopping the community transmission through lockdown? I would rather go for people staying at home and ensuring physical and social distances than to go out to engage themselves in large gatherings just because they want to participate in some exercises. There are some home level exercises that we can engage in at home without having to come in large number and continue to spread the virus. So this is something I would rather advocate. People can move even within their compounds. They can move, they can do some household chores, they can move from their rooms to the living room, to the outside of the home. They can climb stairs for those who have such stairs in their houses. They can move not within a far distance, and that is enough for the day. As long as we can keep active at home for a minimum of 30 minutes, I'm sure we would have achieved what we want, not going and mix with so many other people from different houses, from different, and by that we infect one another. So such exercises that we can engage in at home are enough for us. And I'm not sure that exposure to sunlight actually requires that you must go out to the football field and stay for a long time before you can get the benefit of enjoying vitamin D or whichever. At least normal settings of our houses have allowed for exposure to the amount of light that our sun that we need on daily basis. So we don't need an extra amount by going out to the football fields to get those amount of sunlight. So when one looks at all this, you will still agree with me that it is better to stay at home. You can move around between your room and the places where you do some of your normal activities, not within a very big perimeter. That is enough for you. That is enough for you to move your body to ensure that you are physically active, and that is enough for you to gain whatever that we need to do to cope the problem of depression or tension or the problem of sitting in one place and probably getting yourself exposed to the risk of deep vein thrombosis as well as other conditions.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Issa Sadiq Abubakar. Coming back to the studio briefly, Professor Nasidi, how do we ensure uniformity? Yes, we have to go to Lagos, but I'll come to you to give us your final thoughts. We're going to Lagos now, where Dr. Rita Oladele is. Can we have your closing thoughts? You've listened to everybody. Briefly, can we have your closing thought on how to stem or curb community transmission of this COVID-19 as the figures continue to escalate?
Thank you very much. So my thoughts are this. We need to educate our people, and we need to educate them at their level of education. So if we break it down to the layman's language, where not words like social distancing. What is social distancing? Can we bring it down to their level? Can we educate, like another panelist has said, the opinion leaders in the community, the imams, the pastors, the chemist man who happens to be the doctor for some communities, the politicians? Can we engage them to take this message down and break it down to community? Women leaders, market women leaders, can they take it, explain to them, educate them so that they break it down to their different communities to understand why they must make this sacrifice, to stay at home, to maintain social distancing, to endure some of the pangs of headache for our collective good. I do believe that when we take the education down to their basic languages and for them to hear it from the people that they can identify with, we will win the war faster and better. So for me, education is it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Rita Oladele. Professor Nasidi, the issue of testing keeps coming up. But we do know that there is no country that has undertaken mass testing, because first of all, I mean, it's costly, and you don't have all the testing kits, to go around the population. So what do we need to do, therefore, in this circumstance in which we find ourselves? And for you to also get the results of the tests. On Good Morning Nigeria, you were the first to indicate that, look, at the time when Nigeria said Nigeria had only 4 or 5 formally recognized testing centers, you did say on Good Morning Nigeria that no. Let's look at VOM, for instance. VOM, that's the Veterinary Institute at VOM near Jos. And you mentioned some other labs, that BSF, that's biosafety laboratories that could be used for this purpose. Have we exhausted, those options now, and what more can be done?
Well, let me just, before I go to testing, to say from what is happening in Kano, I think to me, total lockdown of the nation is virtually imminent if we want to arrest this. So we can no longer treat it as if it's a state problem. It's now a national problem. So also the world is treating this disease now as a global crisis that requires global response. That's one. Then two, nobody is ever saying that everybody must be tested. We are testing high-risk areas. Am I right? Areas that we see that there could be more transmission here. If you want to be ahead of that virus in that area, you have to go there quickly and see that at least most of the people that you think will contaminate this virus, contract this virus, are tested. Two, it's never possible because even the US doesn't have enough test kits to test everybody. So what they are doing is, if you want to to open your country quickly, so the best way is to do this mass testing. Not that mass testing does not mean that everybody in Nigeria must be tested, but to test those you think could be having this disease and you take them away. Now, if you do that, that means you'll be able to be ahead of the virus and contain it, and then you will now have more confidence to open your country or the area that is transmitting. So what to do? In this situation we have now, we have one problem. If there is community transmission, then there is the problem of manpower. So you have to do such capacity. Let's say Dr. Chiku needs maybe 10 people to handle FCT. Now she will need 100, 200 people to really handle. Two, if there is this type of community transmission, the number of cases you'll be seeing will no longer be 10, 4, 40, 30, as Dr. Entadom said. We shall be seeing now 200 more. That means we need more bed capacity. The FCT is working hard on that. We started from about 45 beds. Now, I can assure you, before the end of this week, FCT will deliver more than 600, 700 beds ready to be able to handle this such capacity. Then, we now, unlike before, you remember I said it, that if it is in the community, the best way to have the solution is to work with the leaders of the community, like you said. You can't walk into a community without going through the leaders. Who are the leaders? The faith-based leaders, the traditional leaders, and then the tribal leaders. For instance, we ignore this, but this is very important. In Abuja, you have the Ezendibo one. You have Sarki Hausawa, you have Oba of Yorubas, you have all these groups. So every small tribe has a leader that they listen to more than even some traditional rulers. So that time has come to start working. Then finally, we have a system on ground that works with the community. It's called the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. The PHC is so crucial to build that such capacity, to make sure that federal can't come to that level, state won't go every time to that level, but MPSCD and LGAs should be empowered now to take charge.
Professor Naside, thank you. That's another very important point. Yeah. I don't think that, we've been on COVID-19 for several weeks now, Good Morning Nigeria, and I don't think that I've heard the NPHDC being mentioned in all of this. But so in terms of the value chain of having to ramp up community testing or community rupture of disruption of the transmission, that would be a very significant one. Perhaps too, what could be considered is, fine, you get people to test, how do you incentivize them? So that will be the issue. On that note, we'd like to thank all our guests who've been with us on the program this morning. From Lagos, we were joined via Skype by Dr. Rita Oladile, who's a consultant clinical microbiologist at LUTH and also a senior lecturer at the University of Lagos. So you can see her there in the middle of the screen. Thank you very much, Dr. Oladile. From Kano, that's on the right side of the screen, Professor Isa Sadiq Abubakar, Director, Center for Infectious Diseases Research at Bayero University, and also a member of the Kano State Task Force on COVID-19. Professor Abubakar, thank you for being with us. Dr. Josephine Okechukwu, Director, FCT Department of Public Health, thank you very much. Also, our appreciation to Dr. Godwin Untadom, Chief Consultant Epidemiologist of the Federation. Lastly, Professor Abdulsalami Nasidi, our regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, former DG NCDC, and now Vice Chair FCT Ministerial Expert Committee on COVID-19. So, that does it for us today on Good Morning Nigeria. We're back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Stay safe. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Tumo Yusuf. Wash your hands and stay safe.